Hey, so this is Michael Welch for Global Research News Hour, and I'm here in Columbus, Ohio, on the morning of the election, and there's a lot of concern about how things are going to turn out today. There's certainly been a lot of concerns about election rigging, and so I wanted to come down to talk to the man who literally wrote the book about election rigging in national elections. His name is Bob Fitrakis, and we're here at his home. So, Bob, do you want to just maybe give us a kind of a brief overview of some of the concerns that have been raised in the context of this current election?
Well, there's a variety of things going on. It's been my position that somebody was interfering in the primary in the Sanders-Clinton race, based on the exit polls, is that they were so far outside of the margin of error in 12 of the 26 Democratic elections. Is our State Department, U.S. State Department, would not have certified them as legitimate elections. So that's a concern. A variety of other things. Yesterday I went to court on behalf of Green Party candidate for U.S. Senate, Joe DeMar, and we had a simple request that the 14 counties in Ohio would turn on their security features on their high-speed scanners. 43 of the counties in Ohio vote on paper and have them scanned in. And when they're scanned in, the machine itself has the ability to make an image of every ballot and all the markings, as well as to put them in sequence for later recounting. Now, the odd thing about this, which being Ohio, I should have anticipated it, the counties and the Attorney General, on behalf of the Secretary of State, John Husted, actually came in and fought turning on their audit logs. So this is a huge problem. In November 2015, we had a legalization of marijuana initiatives here in Ohio, and we had a tremendous problem with 3 counties. The vote flipped with the central tabulators. So as an election integrity center that we run through the Columbus Institute for Contemporary Journalism, that among other things has a book company on elections, as well as publishing the Free Press, we asked for the audit logs. Okay, let's see. And we were told, well, it's human error, that somebody made a mistake. But since people don't key this in, it made no sense it would be human error. And when we asked for the audit logs, we were told they don't exist, they weren't turned on. So we were suing after a public records request that asked for the ballots from the primary, and these counties told us they didn't exist. The electronic ballots and the audit logs don't exist because they hadn't activated them as security measures that come routine on all these high-speed scanners. So very kind of Ohio perspective. Hi, we've got this built-in security to make sure no one tampers with the ballot, and we have an audit log that would hold up in court on a chain of custody, but we choose not to simply turn them on, which is virtually an automatic function drop-down box. You just make sure the audit logs are recording and the ballot images are recording. So we found that to be very strange and makes us wonder. We've had problems like this before in Ohio, particularly in 2004. And part of the problem you get is that if people tamper with the ballots, in a lot of times it's chain of custody. Ohio became famous for claiming Boy Scouts mixed up the ballots in places like Miami, Ohio, and in Delaware. They literally said, well, we give them to the Boy Scouts to teach them, civic responsibility. So, when you drag in a bunch of Boy Scouts and put them under oath, it becomes difficult. So we're concerned about the backup security, which really allows you, if you have the ballots and you have the images and you have the high-speed audit logs, it allows you to make sure no one's tampering with the central tabulators. I mean, quite frankly, here's the problem. You got partisan, for-profit corporations secretly programming the voting machines and, of course, the central tabulators. More than that, as you begin to look in Ohio at what the problem is, private companies also deal with the voter database. And many of these are companies that have, all sorts of meta and mega data, SOE, which is part of CITL, and CITL, has interlocking directorships with Booz Allen Hamilton and the Carlyle Group. So these people that are counting the votes are data specialists. So they're controlling the databases is who's eligible to vote, and then the e-poll books that many counties have. In Ohio, those are pretty much run by and maintained by a company that is well-known, Right to Life company called Triad, that's famous for creating a butterfly ballot in 2000, thought to have, that ballot alone, probably lost 10,000 votes in the Miami area, and Gore would have been president had they not had that ballot. But when you see these companies that are clearly partisan, and many of them right-wing or tied to the military intelligence community, you've got to question who controls the vote. Dominion, we know, the old remnants of Diebold, for example, has given money to the Clinton Foundation, and they'll be counting the votes in New York City. Also, Higg Capital, which owns Hart Civic, the third largest voting machine, gave money to the Clinton Foundation as well. So we begin to wonder exactly why would voting machine companies be giving money to a presidential candidate. The same problem we found in 2012 when we found that former Bain Company officials had bought up Hart Civic, and that Romney's family, their personal hedge fund, had invested in Higg, although they claimed it, even though Higg owned the company, they weren't investing in the voting machine companies. So the laws are so laxed here in the United States. So we're looking for voters being kicked off for no reason, often by an algorithm, it seems. And most of those voters, of course, are poor and minority.
I guess there are two general kind of categories of denying people their franchising. I think you've referred to it as stripping and flipping. So I guess the stripping part is where people expect to vote and either they're not allowed to vote, or their vote just doesn't make it there. And then flipping is this whole idea of, well, you voted for somebody, but actually it's recorded as going for somebody else. Yeah, precisely. The stripping, they're getting very good at micro-targeting. These companies, they have your history, right? They know, what zip code you live in, what your consumptive patterns are, all of that, your voting patterns in the past. And some of them, it isn't really hard to figure out, right? If you're purging black voters in Cleveland, they're going to vote 95% Democratic. So that is literally the stripping of the voter rolls. So the voter rolls are being stripped in a targeted, non-random way. And then if you get it close enough, within that, usually we think 3 to 5%, there's various ways of flipping. You can go through the list, a simple algorithm. A lot of these vote counting central tabulators, when you look at how much lines of code there is, for example, when we looked after the 2004 election on the DREs, the direct recording electronic machines, or the computer
voting machines. There was over 2.1 million lines of code. Now, at the time, one of our experts in the legal case said, I could code it in 1,500 lines. Others have quoted as low as 1,800. Because it's just, prime plus one. All you're doing is adding. You're not subtracting people's votes. Although that has happened. We saw that happen in November 2015. So, yeah, you've got algorithms, you've got these Easter eggs that can just appear one time a year at the end of voting and erase themselves. We now know that Bev Harris has proved that, they apparently adopted corporate software for stock preferences, and you can vote in fractions. You can assign a fraction to a voter. And again, Hard Inner Civics, when we studied them, 12 areas of vulnerability. They failed all 12, so you wonder why Mitt Romney in 2012 wanted to buy the worst voting machine company on the market, easily tampered with. It violated all isolation principles. That is, if you corrupted one precinct, it actually corrupted the entire county and allowed you to rewrite the audit logs.
So I know you've got got to move in a minute, but I just wanted to ask a question about whose interests should be served in this instance, because it sounds like what you're talking about is largely favors Republicans, but at the same time, it seems like in this state at least that Donald Trump is not very well liked by Republicans like John Kasich. So how do you anticipate, if this election rigging scheme is successful, how would you anticipate things might go?
I think Trump is predicted to win the state by a few votes. My thought, the people who historically have the ability to strip and flip would favor Hillary Clinton. They would want her to win. I think our governor, John Kasich, hopes she wins so he can run against her in 4 years. Our very ambitious Secretary of State, who I sued yesterday, again, has historically purged black and minority voters. But I think if anyone's going to strip and flip, which I think they clearly did in 2004 when they claimed the Ohio supercomputers failed and they sent the final vote tally to Chattanooga, Tennessee, to the old Pioneer Bank building run by a former born-again evangelical minister named Jeff Averbeck for a company called SmartTech, which was a server farm for the Republican Party, including the White House. GWB 43, the legendary email of Karl Rove, where 20 to 22 million emails were missing, were all, the vote was actually counted there. I think they've gotten a lot more sophisticated. It'll be a bit harder to see if they're cheating this time, but I think if they cheat for anyone, it'll be to give Hillary Clinton a slight victory, because I think really to a large extent the corporate oligarchs are much more comfortable with her position as a long history of neoliberalism and neocon, war hawkish foreign policy.
Now, I notice you're also running as a Green Party representative for County Prosecutor. So I'm wondering if you have any thoughts about how the Greens or the other third parties might be affected by this kind of election tampering.
Oh, well, one of two ways. Either they're going to park a lot of votes in the Green Party that we might not deserve, or they're going to steal some of our votes. I suspect it'd be if Jill Stein gets 3, 4, 5% in Ohio, which the polls are showing, be a good place to go in a close race to steal some votes and flip them to Ms. Clinton.
Okay. Hey, well, Bob, I want to thank you for sharing those thoughts with us. So we'll be in touch with you throughout the day to see how things develop. But thanks very much for sharing this with Global Research.
Glad to do it.